Hey everybody, thanks for joining our webinar on product marketing in fast-growing companies, especially fintech. My name is Assad. I work here at CFSI, helping manage the Financial Solutions Lab, and we are really thrilled to be joined by CMO.LA, which is a marketing firm that we work with that has a lot of deep expertise in fintech. They got to work with a number of our companies last year, and they all had really great things to say about the support they received. So we figured that we would work with them to develop a little bit of content around what might be useful for early stage fintech companies that are out there to understand about product marketing, especially in companies that are growing pretty quickly. So I will hand it over to Peter and Leslie, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves as well. Peter, go ahead and take it.
Hey, thank you so much, Assad, and thank you for the kind words. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with the FinLab companies. So we really, are happy to be on the webinar today. And it's myself, Peter Mansfield, and my colleague Leslie Olson. We're going to sort of tag team on this. And the goal of the session is to help you avoid the incredibly common product management and marketing pitfalls that plague fast growth companies. And Leslie and I have seen these very close in the trenches. So I think we've got some good experience that we can pass on to you. To just give you a little overview of what we're going to cover today, I'll give you a quick introduction to both Leslie and to myself. We're going to do a very quick slide that just talks about the differences between product management and marketing. And then we're going to dive into 4 key areas that cause a lot of problems for most companies. The first one is a 5-star clusterfuck. And you'll pardon our French on this, but we couldn't think of a better word to describe it. The second area is just dodgy product testing. Third area is feature creep. And then the last area that we're going to focus on is lousy communication and poor discipline. So just to lead off, give you a quick background on Leslie and myself. Collectively, we've got over 50 years experience in senior marketing and product management roles, mostly in financial services and fintech companies. Out of the 50 years, as you can probably see from the photos here, photos at the bottom, the bulk of those are from me. But we're both, Leslie and I are both really passionate about building killer products that turn customers into raving fans. And that's, pretty much usually the goal for product management and marketing people as well. So I think we're pretty well aligned. And both Leslie and I really love working with early stage companies. So, and actually Leslie and I met as colleagues at a company called Property Bridge that was an automated rent payment solution. We had a really successful exit there. We sold it to MoneyGram. This was a few years back. Leslie was head of product and I was head of marketing. Based on that experience, we've stayed in touch. And then just recently, Leslie joined the CMO.LA team as our Northern California outpost. So Leslie is based in Oakland. I'm based with another Leslie down in Los Angeles. These are some of the partners that we work with. It's a fair selection of the venture funds and angels that work with fintech companies, as well as a lot of the other service providers, law firms, incubators, you name it. We are heavily entrenched within financial services space. And then just a very quick overview of some of the clients that we work with. Most of these are in fintech, not exclusively so, but most of our clients are financial services or fintech related. So jumping in, though, into the main topic here, which is, and to lead things off, is taking a quick look at the difference between product management and marketing. And we've got them both listed out here. The webinar itself actually is a little more focused on product management. And that's partly because when it comes over to the marketing side of things, things get very specific very quickly for most companies. Each of you that are listening to this probably has your own target audiences, your own type of solution. And to help sort of accommodate that, what we always offer is a 1-hour session, one-on-one with you, anyone that would like to take us up on this, to just kind of walk through the specifics of your marketplace. So, as we go through this, as you'll see, product management sort of leads the way through most of the webinar. And when it comes to product management, the kind of key areas that product managers typically cover, first and foremost, is helping set the strategy and understanding the business values of the product. And as part of that, sort of helping define the product in detail. That sort of includes things like requirements, use cases, And then sort of acting as an advocate and representing the customer internally within their organization, key aspect of a product manager's role. And then extending through to that to sales support, customer development, so helping out other people within the company in closing deals and keeping customers happy. And then, alongside that as well, also building a deep understanding of competitive products and the technologies around them. It's always going to be useful. And being responsible typically for the roadmap and all the different communication that revolves around the roadmap and other aspects of the product within their organization. On the product marketing side, the primary responsibilities, if there is a person dedicated to product marketing, sometimes this is more the role just of someone within marketing that's got a broader range of responsibilities, but typically the product marketing encompasses the go-to-market strategy. That's coming up with a blueprint for delivering the product to the customer. And included in that is the high-level product positioning and messaging, and that includes usually, the top-level benefits. It's also usually the responsibility of the product marketing person to build out the marketing and sales collateral tools. Could be video, could be a whole slew of different things to provide air cover for the business development process. And it's also critical, again, to build up a deep understanding of the market and the competitive landscape alongside the product management team. And then it's responsibility for marketing to drive awareness, demand, and adoption of the product. So there are some subtle differences, and ideally within an organization, these two areas go hand in hand. But it's important, I think, to understand the differences and how the two areas sort of define themselves. To carry on through, I'm actually going to hand things over now to Leslie. And as you'll see, each of the different areas, the 4 areas that we're going to cover, the things to avoid, each has its own dilbert that we pulled up. And he often kind of gets to the key points like this faster than anyone. So I'm going to hand things over to Leslie.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, well, now that we know the difference between product management and product marketing, let's take a look at some of the big reasons things fall apart. The first one's pretty obvious. I mean, we all want to avoid a clusterfuck, right? This Dilbert cartoon sums it up pretty nicely. I added all the product features that each of you demanded. Now our product is a worthless hodgepodge of complexity. I appreciate your input. I couldn't have failed without you. We've all felt this way at times. And I think, if you move to the next slide, why does a product become a disastrous hodgepodge? Sometimes it's the result of very good intentions. The great thing about early stage companies is that everyone wears a lot of hats. Everyone's really passionate about the product and has a ton of ideas. And the challenging thing about early stage companies is that everyone wears a lot of hats and has a ton of ideas. So you need to have the right structure and process for validating all these great ideas, which is not to minimize the good side of having input from all of these various people and functions, because you want to have ideas. You just need to make sure that these ideas don't spiral out of control. Okay, so on this slide, you can see the results of all of this input can be demonstrated here. The upper left corner shows you what the customers say they want. The lower right corner is what they actually need. We won't spend a ton of time on this, but you can see there's a lot of difference between the 2 points. So moving to the next slide, one of the biggest issues that we see is that no one owns the product. This is often why things go awry. And really, it's a structural issue. In many early stage companies, there is no true owner of the product. So no one owns the product. Everyone thinks they own the product. Everyone wants to have a little piece of it. But no one wants to be held accountable for it. And so there's really no clear path for making decisions. People spin in circles. There's no point of contact for communication. People don't know when the product's coming, what's in it, how it's going to be rolled out. And why does this happen? Typically, it's because there's either no product manager at all, there's a very junior product manager, or there's what I call the unempowered product manager. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I know a lot of people out there may be saying, well, the product manager needs to be able to create their own authority and earn the respect of the team. And this is true. But the most successful product managers I've seen also have the support of the entire management team. So they have to both build credibility as well as be essentially given the authority to own the product. But the reality is, in the absence of this, you run into all sorts of problems. You get scope creep, you get mistakes, you get confused people everywhere, internally and externally. And not to be overly dramatic, but you get a failed product and you can have a failed company. So this is not a good thing. So how do you solve this? Moving to the next slide. First and foremost, you get a good, strong product manager. This person has to serve as the product expert. They have to be comfortable making critical decisions. They have to be the person that everyone can look to for information about competitive products, about customer needs, about product features, all the documentation. They also have to bring the team together, and this may be the most important part. It's such an important collaborative role. The product manager has to lead the cross-functional team. They have to gather feedback from all the stakeholders. They have to gain consensus. Sometimes this can be a combination of coach, referee, and cheerleader. A lot of times it involves conflict management from different points of view, but it's really critical. They also have to spec out the solutions. So they're defining and documenting the requirements, use cases, mock-ups. They're prioritizing features to really make sure that what they're shipping, what they're releasing is the most important thing to the customer. And then they're driving the marketing, and they're articulating the benefits. And it's critical here. The benefits are the key. From a marketing messaging perspective, customers don't care about features. They care about benefits. I don't care what it is. I care how it helps me. I care what it does to improve my life. And they define the go-to-market plan. All right, so next slide. What makes a great product manager? Good product managers should be collaborative dictators. And yes, that is one of my favorite terms. It's really essential that the product manager build strong cross-functional partnerships and work in a really collaborative way. But equally essential is that they are comfortable and confident enough to draw a line in the sand and make tough decisions. You've got to be comfortable with conflict, and you cannot be afraid to say no. And honestly, the product manager that's trying to make everyone happy is going to fail every time. In terms of the scope of the areas of expertise, they've got to be focused on the user experience, so how the customer interacts with the product, with the technology, so the features, the architecture, as well as the business and the market and the customer need. All of those things feed into the product and have to be within the domain of the product manager. The next slide are some key questions that a great product manager asks, that they wake up in the morning thinking about. How is this product solving a problem? They have to both understand what the problem is, and they have to be able to translate that into features that solve the problem for the customer. Also, how is this product making good on the promises we've laid out? It's pretty easy to talk the talk, but the product manager has to be sure that the product can also walk the walk. And then lastly, how is this product staying ahead of the competition? It's not okay to just be keeping up with the competition. You have to be staying a step ahead, and you have to understand where the market's going and how the product must evolve.
Actually, one thing to throw in as well, if you're wondering what those little boxes are down at the bottom right, those are actually links to some good articles if you'd like to dig a little deeper on any of the topics as we're going through. So you can see the one down there, the bottom left, Why Most Product Managers Suck and How to Be a Better One. Really cool article that you might want to check out.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, next slide. What does a great product manager look like? The truly great product managers are truly a jack of all trades and somewhat of a chameleon at the same time, who can change their communication style depending on the audience. First and foremost, they influence without authority. What do I mean by that? Essentially, in this cross-functional collaborative team, the product team, they're not the manager of these people. The team doesn't report to them, so they don't have the authority to tell people what to do. They have to lead through consensus, through a process where they're earning the credibility and the respect of the team. And then they also have to make sure that everyone feels like they're on the same team and that they're moving in the same direction. They also must prioritize ruthlessly, and I mean be really hard-assed about it, because you have got to get to the minimum feature set to have a viable product, the minimal viable product. And to do that, you have to prioritize, and you have to force rank, and you have to say this is in, this is out, and you cannot deviate from that. You also must communicate with presence, and you have to be able to speak to board members and C-level people and developers and customers and salespeople, and you've got to have the information they need, whether it's what's in the product, when is it coming, how will it work. You've got to be the go-to. And then, again, the jack of all trades, you got to be prepared to do everything from presenting to the management team to sitting down with the developer and figuring out the UI for a new feature to talking to the sales strategy. So all of these things are important in a great product manager. All right, next slide. Let's move on to the next thing to avoid, which is inadequate product testing. Bottom line, it's critical that you do the right product testing with actual customers. Otherwise, you end up with a product that we see on the next slide. Pork brains. Yeah, I didn't make it up. For real, pork brains. In a can, no less. So these people clearly did not do a lot of customer research. No one wants to buy brains in a can, especially when the cholesterol is over 1,000% of your daily allowance. So let's not do that. Let's go to the next slide and figure out how to avoid this disastrous mistake. So the problem is you don't test your product with customers. What does that mean? That means you're typically just creating a product based on internal knowledge, which is not to say you aren't a smart person, but you may not have all the nuances and needs that the customers do. And your features are not validated by customers. So why does it happen? Okay, first and foremost, I hear this all the time. You're smarter than everyone else. Yes, definitely keep telling yourself that. Second, you don't have time to reach out to customers. This is never a valid excuse. You have got to make time. This is critical. Or one of my favorites, the board said it's great. Well, that's great, but they're not living with a problem every day. So if this is your approach, you're going to run into two opportunities here. There'll be two scenarios. Best case scenario, the product is sort of limping along. You're not hitting your revenue numbers, but your customers are coming and going. Worst case scenario, you're not selling anything, and you're looking for a new job. So how do we avoid this? This one is, there's work here, but it pays off in spades. So first of all, do competitive research. Get out there. If there are no competitors, find out why. Maybe the problem really isn't that much of a problem that you're trying to solve. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe there are some solutions that sort of do this, some that don't, but do the research. Take the time. Understand the pain points of the customers. You've got to sit down with customers. And I love to do one-on-one sessions where you can actually have a conversation, understand the problem, talk about business processes, and really, really get to the heart of the matter. Be sure that you're building in flexibility and design your product in such a way that you don't develop yourself into a corner, because there are different business processes from one customer to the next. You certainly don't want to hard code anything to one customer's business needs. And then constant interaction with your target audience and customers. This one is the most important. Find ways to talk to customers and prospects, whether that's through online surveys where you can get some great quantifiable information, or support calls is also one of my favorites. Sit down with the support people, hear what people are saying, understand the problems that they're having on a day-to-day basis. Also, customer advisory boards are great. It's a great way to engage your customers and make great customers feel important. It's also a great way to have that constant two-way dialogue and really can help shape the product in a way that meets their needs. All right, so what makes a truly great product? It's pretty simple, really. You have to be sure your product solves the problem. You have to understand the problem and then be able to solve it. You have to have a product that's easy to explain. If it takes you 30 minutes to explain what your product is, you're probably not headed in the right direction. And then it must have unique features. You cannot roll out the same old. You can't roll out something that's as good as the competitors. You have to do something that is better and unique. So you see the products on the right. This is a good cross-section of products that have sold millions and billions of units. And it's really because they did just this. Okay. Next thing to avoid, feature creep. This is the death of most product teams. Let's move to the next slide. Ever-expanding scope. What happens? The scope is constantly changing. It's constantly growing. It's just this vicious cycle of continuing to add to a development cycle. The team is forever in this cycle of brainstorming and looking at every possible scenario. You've got people saying, yep, we're going to do all that, and we're going to do 12 other things too, and sure, we can do it all in the same timeline. So why does this happen? Typically, it's because there is a lack of deep understanding of the customer needs. Maybe you don't even understand who exactly the customer is, or worse, you've got a solution that's looking for a problem. Also falls to this sloppy or non-existent prioritization. You're unwilling, unable to make the hard decisions. Maybe you don't have a product manager. This could be part of the problem. Or you're in this alternate reality where you refuse to understand that product development is a zero-sum game. And if you put something in, you have to take something out or extend the timeline. It's basic math when you have limited resources. So what's the result? First and foremost, you have terrible morale. Your team hates you. They feel like they're going in circles. There's unrealistic expectations. They're working their tails off, and they're getting nowhere. You also get really literal thinking from a development perspective, and this one takes a little explanation. It's essentially, if you've got a lockdown scope and the team knows the problem you're trying to solve, they can be more creative in the solution, and they can be more flexible in the solution. So they're not just saying, okay, I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. They might say, hey, I'm going to give you what you asked for, but I'm going to build it in such a way that it'll solve this problem different ways. And so that's a really important thing that you lose when you don't have a lockdown scope. And of course, you have this never done mentality. And, you're missing dates, everyone's confused, sell product, sell company. It's not a good thing. So how do you solve this? There's really two things here. So first and foremost, lock down the scope up front. Ruthless prioritization. Your first response when someone asks to add something to scope should always be no. People have to really hold tight in today's world where iterative development cycles are 4 to 6 weeks long. Any change is going to be disruptive. So you have to have those tough conversations about what's in scope before the iteration starts. And that's the opportunity to beg, plead, borrow, scream, cry, plead for your features, not midstream. And then also, you have to understand trade-offs. And this is a tough one for a lot of people to understand. I'm actually kind of constantly amazed by this. I'm trying to teach this concept to my kids. I said you could have 2 cookies. If you eat one and then decide you want ice cream, you have to give the second cookie back to me. You may only eat a finite amount of dessert. The same is true of development resources. If you want to maintain the original timeline, but you want to add a feature, you have to take one away, or you have to extend the timeline. This is just reality. Okay, now I'm going to turn it back over to Peter to talk a little bit about communication.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, the last area that we wanted to focus on was communication and discipline issues. And there's 4 kind of key areas here that we think are just crucial in helping a product manager be successful, and having a product development program be successful alongside that. And we're just going to go through these pretty quickly. And these, you can probably look at these and say that these apply across most areas of business. So they're somewhat generic, but still important. It's critical, as Leslie mentioned, to stay disciplined. You've got to stay within the scope for the product and for the project and for the timeline and for the development team to be successful. And as part of that, you also need to share the responsibilities and the timelines sensibly and realistically. Sharing the responsibilities is not just a factor of the product manager knowing what they're supposed to be doing, but also for all the other people that are stakeholders in the project, also having a really good sense for where they're going to be a successful part of the project. And as Leslie mentioned, realistic timelines are just critical. If you want the product manager to maintain that credibility and stay, be a popular part of the team, it's important that those timelines are realistic. If you're unrealistic about them, then it's a very fast track to people being disappointed. And then also, it's great to have the right tools. And we went ahead and put together actually a little subset of tools that you might want to consider if you are looking to provide a little bit of assistance or some structure around the product management and marketing process. These are some, popular solutions. AHA is probably one of the most popular product management tools for product, that product managers seem to gravitate towards. Craft and ProdPad are two others, and there's a couple of additional ones here as well, which are Product Plan and Product Board. These two actually look pretty similar in their branding and their websites, but there are actually two distinct solutions. I think Product Board is one of the newer entries into the marketplace, but it seems like it's becoming pretty popular. There's an article linked down the bottom there as well to 8 product management software tools that are tailor-made for product managers. I think at least half of the solutions that we've got here are included in that article, so it might be worth taking a look at those. And it's the same as with any kind of SaaS-based solution or any kind of software. It's only as good as the stuff you put into it, and this comes back again to the discipline aspect of the product management sort of process is, if you're disciplined and use these solutions sensibly, they can really help, structure things out very effectively for you. They've already got the templates in there. They've already got the tools that allow you to create the sort of roadmaps and timelines and tools that are going to be useful for you to be able to communicate within your organizations. To add some additional depth to things here, if you're looking to really dive in and understand the nuances and the ins and outs of product management and development to the next level, there's 3 resources that we put here. The top one is a really interesting article from Harvard Business Review, and it's actually focused in mostly on product hardware development, but as it mentions in the article, the principles and the processes that they lay out, it's a pretty in-depth article. The stuff that's in there is highly applicable to pretty much any solution, fintech, SaaS solution, whatever you want to throw at it. So it's definitely worth taking a look through that. Down at the bottom left there, the product management book, the blue one, is actually a book that we could email out to you. It's from a company called Intercom that does a lot of really nice tools for product management. And then on the right, there's a book there that you can buy on Amazon called Hooked that has a really interesting and process that you can use within your own organizations. The book I think is only about $12, and it's a popular book. So again, it might be worth taking a look at. With any of these that you see here, and including the articles that we were showing earlier, and you can just click on that if you're in slide view mode, and it'll take you to the link. In the case of the book, it'll take you straight to the Amazon page. But as far as the blue book on the left there, that'll just should open up an email that you can ping either Leslie or me, and we can send you the book. Just to do a quick summary here of the areas that we covered, the 4 areas. The first one, the pain points that we addressed, was no one owns the product. So the quick summary solution on that is to find someone that can and does own the product. Hopefully, some of the tips and advice that we gave you there are going to work for you. At any point, if you've got, wanted to dig in a little deeper, feel free to ping us, and we can sort of give you some additional advice on any of these areas. Next area, though, is you don't test your product. So the top level suggestion on that is just to insist on continual interaction with customers to understand what they want. Leslie sort of gave you some sort of pointers on how to do that. It doesn't need to be a big fancy focus group. It can be just as simple as talking to a customer on the phone, or via email, or doing a quick survey online. There's lots of great tools like SurveyMonkey out there where you can do that very painlessly. Or it could even just be getting some customers down to a Starbucks and paying them $15 for half an hour of their time to see what they like and don't like about solutions like yours. But testing the product is absolutely critical. The next area that we focused on was feature creep. And here, the top level suggestion is to just understand the implications of every additional feature and try and stay strong as much as you can within your organization, and learn, if you can't say no, learn how to say no to people, even if they've got excellent suggestions. Just kind of think through the process and what the compromises are of adding in a new feature. And then the last area that I covered was communication and discipline. And just really important there to maintain authority and awareness of the responsibilities, not just for the product management team, but also for everyone else around them, all the other stakeholders in the product. So that was sort of the summary. The next steps, as I mentioned right at the beginning, was we'd be delighted to just schedule a one-on-one session with any of you that think that you'd like to dig in a little deeper on product marketing and management, or just in general, just to talk about marketing. As Asad mentioned, we do office hours, and we are more than happy to help out with any of the companies at FinLab. Our email addresses are down there, and so please feel free to go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll do the best we can to help you along the way with your product and with your marketing. So thank you so much for listening in, and we'd love to get your feedback on the webinar, and hopefully we can help you out in the future. Back to you, Asad.
Great. Peter and Leslie, thanks again for taking the time to put this together and to share this with the folks. Like I mentioned at the top, all the companies that CMO.LA has worked with have had really positive feedback from FinLab, and I think the tips you guys just gave around thinking about product more broadly should be applicable to a lot of the companies who are on our website. The last thing I'll add here is FinLab, our current challenge, our application's open now. If you have a product that improves Americans' financial health, we want to hear from you. We'd love to see you as an applicant. Go to financialsolutionslab.com. Our deadline is towards the end of this month, April 27th. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I'll put it in the notes here, but FinLab at CFS Innovation, and one of us on the team will respond. But yeah, thanks again, Peter and Leslie, and hopefully this was useful for a number of folks out there.
Thank you so much.